Journal with a piece looking at whether or not DeepSeek sort of uncovers NVIDIA's liabilities.
Well, look, I think that there's a perception that more is less. More chips, more people who know how to use them, more out of China means less for NVIDIA. NVIDIA's been quiet.
Jim Cramer discussed growing concerns about NVIDIA's dominance in AI chips as competition intensifies, particularly from DeepSeek and Chinese advancements. Competitors are finding ways to achieve similar results with cheaper, more efficient alternatives, raising doubts about NVIDIA's monopoly and pricing power. Despite these challenges, major players like Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon continue investing heavily in NVIDIA's advanced chips, affirming their belief in its long-term relevance to AI innovation. However, shifts in the industry, such as open-source models and new efficiencies, could reshape demand and create uncertainty about NVIDIA's future. Cramer noted that NVIDIA's next steps, whether asserting its leadership or adapting to competition, will heavily influence its valuation. While optimistic about its role in the AI revolution, he acknowledged the rapid changes in the market might affect demand and pricing.
What they may have advised people, look, you can look at the CES post-interview, not good enough. I think people have decided that we had a rebound, but the reality is that the orders will decline. By the way, therefore, the power will decline because people are figuring out how to use more with less. And David,
that's the negative thesis.
That's the big negative thesis.
Of course, we've been talking about it since Monday.
Well,
yeah,
I'm just kind of going it over with people.
Okay.
But ASMLF does not say good things. It says bad things because what it says is, look, there's a lot of equipment being used. The more equipment to use, again, we have more is less. So the whole world is kind of coalescing upon the idea that NVIDIA is not as special as we thought. And that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, what does that result in, Jim? Because we've all been having conversations these last few days with as many people who make decisions about what to buy and sell in terms of this area. And the one thing I've heard is maybe it's the out years. Maybe the multiple simply comes down because there is more uncertainty in the name.
Look, I watched Brad Gerstner yesterday. I mean, there's a sense that the multiple has become very low. So it's actually one of the lowest.
Brad's undeterred, by the way. He's a big believer in the overall growth not being in any way impacted. You know, I suppose.
But if you don't
accelerated compute is the present and it's the future.
Yes, it is. And I would tell you they still have a tremendous lead. Is China an existential threat to them? What China says is that maybe you should pause. But I want to come back and say something that I think that people should remember. If Larry Ellison and Mark Zuckerberg and presumably Elon Musk were all buying the highest end chips, did they not have knowledge about what was going on in China? I think that's fanciful. I think they had tremendous knowledge.
I think they knew. I agree with you. And by the way, I mean, there were the way this news played out is puzzling to some because there were plenty of people who were aware of DeepSeek's not just its aspirations, but its accomplishments previously with the previously released models. And so they had to have been aware of this. Yes. And so when you look at Zuckerberg spending $60 to $65 billion, the announcement obviously just on Friday. You look at the Stargate announcement from last week, and Nadella affirming $80 billion, and everybody else. They had to know, Jim. Yeah, and they were undeterred at this point. But everybody's looking everywhere for signs, right? Even Owens Corning, which provides fiber into data centers, I think was a positive read this morning. People are always looking for affirmation.
Right. I think that we're all kind of used to the greatness of Jensen Huang and NVIDIA. I mean, Carl, the most substantive thing that people are hanging their hat on is that all these customers were mesmerized by President Trump and felt that they have to order. Now, that's almost conspiratorial. I think that they have more in mind than just doing Chat GPT in an advanced way. If that's the case, then these companies in China, they have figured out how to do the lower end. I think Jensen would say, well, that's terrific. What we're on is a very different plane. We've left that behind. We're not about asking them about why did Brinker have a good quarter? Is Starbucks coming back? Did T-Mobile take share? That's already in the Industrial Revolution. That's the cotton gin. I mean, he's talking about making the sewing machine. And I think that people don't realize that he is a visionary and he is well ahead of everything we're talking about.
So you don't think there's downside to at least the margins?
I do think that there will be, and I think that's why you're seeing some compression. But until someone actually has a better chip, an actual better chip, and there we have to see Amazon. And Amazon's going to report. Amazon is the one that is really rival. I was surprised that Advanced Micro actually went down because people feel, hey, listen, if this stuff is so easy, let's put it on AMD. But I think that a lot of that was...
You can start using AMD chips because you don't need all the compute power of the highest GPUs from Nvidia, but I don't know.
I would love to see Lisa Su talk about it. We're in quiet period for everybody. You can't get the stuff that you like.
We're going to get certainly plenty of questions about it on all the calls that are yet to come.
Right.
Whether it's Meta, Microsoft, and on from there.
It is the theme of the moment because some people saw it coming and yet they still ordered. That would be the Zuckerberg case, maybe the Musk piece. And then other people just said, oh my, what am I in? I'm going to go buy a double short Nvidia. And then there are other people who think it's a hand cream.
Well, there's another way to view it, which is that the DeepSeek's accomplishments, and by the way, Alibaba today as well.
I know.
This model, people, again, were aware of this. This is something we've been told some time ago, but they, released a new upgraded AI model that they say surpasses DeepSeek's V3. All of it, though, could point to sort of that exponential change that we fail to appreciate sometimes, because it sometimes just can't quite rattle around in some people's brains in terms of how quickly things can move. It was only a couple of months ago we were worrying that these models were running out of things to train on, that they were not progressing as quickly as previously.
No one's talking about scaling walls anymore.
No more. And in fact, you're suddenly seeing these efficiencies that have been added, these techniques that are different, open source, so available to all. And it does bring up the idea that there could be even more change more quickly.
No, I mean,
even more compute power potentially needed.
Right, but the more is less means that maybe the monopoly rent that people feel that Nvidia was charging is gone. There's also frankly, we had GE Vernova yesterday. The idea that maybe this whole concept of more power is ridiculous. I had Rusty Brazil on, he's my guy, RBN Energy, who's saying, are you kidding me? I mean, you really think that all these plants are going to be built? I'm waiting to see. I think the test would be, is 3 Mile Island not going to be reopened? That would be one that I need to hear. And secondarily, I need to hear that there are any order pullback. And I have not heard that yet, but that's not necessarily what people are going to announce. That they listen, I've decided if this thing only needs 1/10 of the power, 1/10 of the compute, well, I'm going to cut my orders by 9/10. I've not heard that yet, but this thing is a steamroller.
The majority of the models are American models, but here we see now the Chinese also coming in with not only an aggressive, competitive model, but one that's cheaper and lower cost. So it just gives everybody the motivation to keep going and going faster.
Well, I mean, what that says to me is that Nvidia has to come out and either say democratization is terrific, but we're really on another plane doing different things, or Nvidia can say, you know what, we got to work harder because the other guys have something we don't. If he says the latter, then the multiple will shrink. If he says the former, then the multiple could grow and we would regain higher.
Haven't heard from Jensen yet, at least not publicly. The earnings are not for a little while. Jevons paradox, though, people still want to talk about it. I know.
Well,
I'm an expert, by the way, now in the 1865 economists in Great Britain and all the things
when you said that the first time I thought about it, I was thinking maybe he's thinking that Devon Energy is going to get a takeover bid. That is widely thought.
You thought when I said Jevon?
Yeah.
Some of his friends called him Yevon, some called him Levon, but I went with Jevon.
You look at the declines, for example, in Nvidia and Broadcom. Micron's down a ton again. This week, I should say, both those stocks are down double-digit percentage points. Is that this is only going to lead to more consumption, more chips, not less. But as an Nvidia shareholder, as that stock was up quite nicely yesterday, giving half of it back again today, that's where the real questions still lie. And it relates exactly to what Steve was talking about with Microsoft and what we talked about with Meta. Any suggestion whatsoever about a reassessment of spend, you're going to look right at that stock and 100%. See the impact.
Yeah. And I think for me, one of the things as I've kind of reviewing the news with DeepSeek over the weekend, obviously costs are undeniable. The cost to build out this large language model that they did was obviously far cheaper than what the cost of to buy an Nvidia chip. But the other thing that I think is somewhat debatable is performance, right? What is the real performance? Only enterprise and only consumers can make that determination. So for me, as I look to Nvidia and I look to Nvidia earnings towards the several weeks from now. Yes, I mean, all beltways have led back to Nvidia, and now this is a complete reset. We've heard from other players, ASML, obviously as an example, talking about this is only going to spur demand. We'll see. I do think it's going to be a reset, but I do think they have the most important chips at play for this AI revolution, but it is somewhat of a reset, and I think that's good.
Nvidia, a leader in AI chip innovation, is facing growing competition from cost-efficient models like DeepSeek's and advancements from Chinese tech giant. While its high-end chips remain essential for major players like Meta and Microsoft, industry trends like open-source innovations and greater efficiency challenge its dominance and pricing power. Nvidia's response and upcoming earnings will be key in determining its future role in the AI landscape. As competitors deliver cheaper alternatives and efficiency improves, Nvidia faces pressure to affirm its leadership or adapt. The market eagerly awaits how Nvidia will navigate these shifts and maintain its relevance in a rapidly changing industry. Can Nvidia sustain its leadership in AI hardware amid rising competition? How might open-source advancements reshape the demand for premium AI chips?